Hello, and welcome to the Bewarecast. In this video, we'll be working our way alphabetically through the species of Dougal Dixon's 1980 speculative biology book, After Man, continuing on from where we left off. So far, we have covered A through N, and so this video will carry on, covering O through R. But before we get started, I'd like to ask that you please hit the like button, as it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you end up enjoying this video, then please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of future uploads. Thank you. The oak leaf toad. A true toad from the undergrowth of temperate woodlands in Europe and Asia with excellent camouflage. It is descended from the common toad. It gets its name from a peculiar fleshy outgrowth on its back that looks exactly like a fallen oak leaf. The toad lies partly buried in the leaf litter, totally camouflaged and quite motionless except for its round pink tongue, which protrudes and wriggles about just like an earthworm. Any smaller animal, such as a very small mammal, that approaches to investigate, falls victim to the toad's powerful jaws. The animal's only real enemy is a predator rat. These two creatures, the oak leaf toad and the predator rat, have a curious relationship. Within their bloodstreams lies a fluke that spends the juvenile stage in the toad and the adult stage in the predator rat. When the fluke approaches adulthood, it produces a dye that turns the leaf-like outgrowth on the toad's back bright emerald green. As this happens in winter, the toad becomes highly conspicuous and is quickly eaten. In this way, the fluke is transferred into the body of the predator rat, where it becomes sexually mature and breeds. The fluke's eggs then return to the toad through the predator rat's feces, which are eaten by beetles that are preyed upon by the toad. As the fluke needs to spend a period of at least 3 years growing in the toad's body before it is ready to parasitize the predator rat, and as the toad is sexually mature at 18 months, all toads have the opportunity of reproducing before being exposed to predation. The Papuan bird snake, an elipid from the Papuas Islands with markings on its head. It is one of the most active and vicious snakes of the archipelago. The pattern on its face is mimicked by the tail of the terror tail. It and its relatives' ancestors had rafted to Papuas from Australia or the other islands in that corner of the Pacific at one time or another. The Papuan whistler, a group of pachycephaline pachycephalids descended from the Australian golden whistlers that were blown across the ocean from Australia and colonised the islands of Papuas, being the first birds to arrive there. Originally a fairly unspecialised bird, it had, during the rule of humanity, begun to show some differentiation, with distinct beak shapes developing on the islands around the Australian coast. However, it was only on the Papuas archipelago, where all the ecological niches were thrown open to them, that the whistlers really developed spectacularly, producing both insectivorous and seed-eating, as well as predatory forms. The descendants of the particular group of golden whistlers that colonised these islands are now regarded as belonging to a single genus, Insulornis. All the species within this genus are now highly specialised, and quite different from one another, excepting I. harti, which is similar in form to the original ancestral bird. The insect eater, I. piciforma, has developed a strong chisel-like bill with which it tears into the bark of trees to get at burrowing insects. Its feet are modified to allow it to cling to the vertical trunks, and the bird closely resembles the extinct woodpeckers of the northern continent, whose mode of life it closely follows in almost every respect. Nuts and tough seeds are eaten by the nut eater I. macrorhyncha, a parrot-like species which has developed a massive bill and the powerful musculature to operate it. This bird has retained the perching feet of its ancestor and has grown a long tail to balance the weight of its large head. Apart from the hawk whistler, the only natural enemies faced by all the Papuan whistlers, including the hawk whistler itself, are the snakes, the Papuan bird snake specifically being the Papuan whistler's most important predator. which have been rafted to Pakwas from Australia or the other islands in that corner of the Pacific at one time or another. The Papuan whistler's wariness of snakes is exploited by the terror-tail. The Pakwas coral fish, a pufferfish-like tetrodontiform found in the coral reefs around the Pakwas Islands. The pamphret, a large predatory carnivorous musteline mustelid unique to the coniferous forests of Eurasia and is one of the few carnivorans still in existence. Its size, up to 2 meters in length, makes it by far the largest predatory animal found in the region, and it probably owes its survival to its low, powerful build and its ability to run through the sparse undergrowth easily, bursting out suddenly upon its prey like spine-tailed squirrels. Pamphrets live in small family groups and normally hunt in pairs. The parashrew, a red-toothed shrew from the western mountains of North America that is perhaps the strangest animal found in any mountainous region. The adults are unremarkable, small, typical-looking shrews, but the juveniles possess one of the strangest devices found in the animal kingdom. At the end of their tails, they have a fantastic parachute structure formed of interwoven hair, which they normally use only once before discarding. When the time comes to leave the parental nest, they launch themselves into the air, relying on the thermal currents that rise from these bare rocky slopes in summer to carry them to a fresh habitat. In some cases, this is several kilometers away. As a means of dispersal, this is a bit hit and miss, but the inevitable high death rate that this behavior produces among young parashrews is more than compensated for by the large numbers of offspring produced by each adult breeding pair. The evolution of the parashrew's parachute tail is primarily due to the creature's ancestry. It is thought that these early creatures used their tails as balancing organs when leaping to catch insects in mid-air. The parachute consists of soft, curled hairs hooked together to form a mat and held in shape by a series of bristles growing from the tip of the tail. The Parops lepidorostris, a basic-looking starling from the coniferous forests of Europe, descended from the common starling. It is the broadbeak's closest living relative, being a totally different creature. It is only 10 centimeters long and lives mainly on insects that it extracts from the bark of trees within its thin beak. The piffrit, a bizarre, tiny, semi-aquatic talpine talpid. It is one of the most unusual water-living mammals living in the temperate wetlands of Europe, Asia, and North America. Its length, excluding its tail, is less than 5 centimeters, which puts it among the smallest mammals in existence. Although its body is thin, its feet and tail are broad and are covered with water-repellent hairs which spread its weight over such a large area that it can skate across the water without breaking the surface tension. It lives mainly on the larvae of mosquitoes and midges that are found just under the water surface. It feeds on them by piercing their outer cuticles with its long hairless snout and draining them of their vital juices while they are still in the water. In this way, the piffrit avoids disturbing the water surface, which would both upset the surface tension and frighten away its prey. The picktooth, a little rabbuk from the tropical grasslands of Africa. It feeds on low-growing herbs and roots, which it digs up with its tusks and spurs. Its second incisor teeth are developed into strong, laterally directed tusks, and it has a long, spur-like claw on the 4th digit of each forefoot. As it runs only on the 2nd and 3rd toes of each foot, the spurs do not hinder it. The taller grasses are grazed by vast herds of larger African rabbuks, such as the strank and the watu. The Pilofile, a migratory sandpiper descended from the red phalarope from the northern hemisphere tundra. During the summer months, the tundra is literally infested with flying insects and has a large population of insect-eating birds. Many, like the Pilofile, have bristled beaks, a ring of stiff hair-like feathers surrounding the beak that forms a cone and deflects insects into its mouth. The bristles in effect widen the bird's potential capture area and increase its food supply. The polar ravine, a fox-like predator rat that lives in the tundra of the northern hemisphere. It is the principal predator of the meeching. It is about the size of the extinct fox and very different from its temperate woodland cousin, the temperate ravine. The latter measures about 114 centimeters in overall length, 30 centimeters high at the shoulder, and weighs 4.5 kilograms. The polar ravine is 112 centimeters long, 37 centimeters high at the shoulder, and weighs 6.4 kilograms. It has a small head with tiny eyes and ears, an adaptation that prevents frostbite, and long, dull brown fur that turns white in the winter to camouflage it against the snow. It attacks the meechings by digging into the fortress with its front paws. In early autumn, the polar ravine molts its dull summer coat and grows a thicker, creamy brown covering of fur. Although the polar ravine is larger than the ravine of the temperate woodlands, it has smaller facial features. The pawpin, a medium-sized pelagornid from coastal Antarctica in the Southern Ocean. Freed of the necessity to come ashore, pelagornids have become completely marine and ultimately have given rise to this completely new order of marine birds, of which the pawpin is the commonest surviving example. The pawpin, like most of its clade, is a fish eater. Its distinguishing feature from other species, like the larger vortex, is a long serrated beak that enables it to catch larger fish than would otherwise be possible. So successful has it been that it has remained virtually unchanged for the last 40 million years. The posset, a large omnivorous tapir pig-like creature from the undergrowth of the Australian rainforest. The floor of the great rainforest of the Australian subcontinent is home for a number of marsupial mammals. One of the most generalized and successful of these is the omnivorous posset, the marsupial equivalent of both the tapir and the pig. Like its two placental counterparts, it wanders through the gloomy undergrowth in small herds, snuffing and scraping for food in the thin soil with its flexible, sensitive snout and protruding tusks. Cryptic coloration helps to conceal it from its enemies. It and similarly sized animals will use well-marked trails made by giantolas as they crash through the thickets as trackways until they are reclaimed by the natural growth of the forest. Predator rats, a group of carnivorous rodents. They evolved from rats, hence their names. After the age of man, the extinction of most carnivorans gave rats a chance to take over their niches. In the distant future, they diversified, having to take the place of many carnivorans, cheetahs, wildcats, wolves, foxes, weasels, bears, and even pinnipeds, and evolved a similar form, although they have retained primitive features like a long, hairless tail. They have become Earth's principal carnivorous mammals. The purip bat, a vesper bat found throughout temperate latitudes of the world. Europe, Asia, North America, Africa, and South America. It is so called because of its curious voice. As dusk falls in the temperate woodlands and the moths and night-active flies take to the air, the carnivorous bats appear to feed on them. Bats have proved so successful in their shape and lifestyle that in most parts of the world they have remained remarkably stable in shape and form ever since they first appeared back in the Middle Paleogene. Save for the development of a more sophisticated echolocation system positioned at the front of the face and the absence of eyes in many species, little else has changed. Unlike most other bats, which generally navigate using high-pitched sounds, the purip bat uses a much wider range of frequencies, extending well into the audible level, giving it a much more sophisticated picture of the terrain. The pytheron, a carnivorous, semi-aquatic, pinniped-like relative of the predator rats from the polar region. There are a few different species of pytheron. Pytherons prey on flightless auks and also on fish during the spring months. They occupy the same ecological niche that the seals occupied in earlier times and, like them, have developed streamlined, blubbery bodies and fin-shaped limbs. Rabbux, descended from rabbits. In the year 50 million AD, in the Postamic period, they fill in the niches of deer, most antelope, zebras, and even giraffes in part. Raboon. Descended from the baboons that flourished on the grasslands during the age of human rule, their diet changed from omnivorous to carnivorous during the period that the big cats of the grasslands died out. At the same time, they increased their speed by taking to their hind limbs and adopting a totally bipedal locomotion. The forelimbs became reduced and the head was carried further forward, balanced by a thick, heavy tail. In physical form, the raboon bears a distinct resemblance to the carnivorous, non-avian theropod dinosaurs that died out at the end of the Mesozoic. The reed stilt. A tall, almost dinosaur-like creature frequently found near riverbanks and lakesides in the wetlands of temperate woodlands and grasslands in the northern continent. It is about 1 meter high at the shoulder and weighs about 60 kilograms. Its long, slender legs and neck and vertical stripes render it almost totally invisible among reeds, where it is frequently found fishing. Its head and neck are most unusual. Practically all mammals have 7 neck vertebrae, but the reed stilt has 15. In evolutionary terms, the extra vertebrae have appeared quite recently and result from the fact that, in fishing, longer-necked individuals have an advantage over the others. The tooth pattern is degenerate, the incisors, canines and molars having all reverted to an almost reptilian condition in which they are all the same shape. The reed stilt uses this combination of neck and tooth features to catch ray-finned fish by darting out its long neck and snapping shut its needle-pointed teeth. The Rootsucker. An armoured, almost pink, fairy armadillo-like chrysotid from the deserts of North America. The North American deserts are not completely barren, but contain an intermittent vegetation consisting of cacti and other succulent plants, normally growing as single specimens, each widely separated from one another. The barren soil surface between the plants conceals a vast network of roots, spreading out to collect enough water for each plant to survive. Among the roots lives the rootsucker. It is heavily armoured to protect it from desiccation rather than to defend it from attack. Its head is shielded by a broad spade-like plate, and its back is covered by a shiny nut-like shell composed of compacted hair. Its tail and feet are also armoured, but with articulated plates that permit total mobility. The rootsucker moves through the sand using its broad feet like paddles and its head shield as a shovel to reach the succulent roots on which it feeds, gnawing them with the edge of its head shield and lower incisors. The ruffle. A long-legged pika from the African-European mountains. Although the mountain areas of the world are so isolated and widely distributed that they can largely be regarded as separate faunal provinces, the fauna of the fold mountain belt between Africa and Europe show characteristics that are typical of mountain life the world over. The ruffle exhibits many of these features. It has a rounded head and body, and disc-like ears, adaptations that guard it against cold. It has long hair under the neck and body to protect its legs from the cold, and its teeth are well adapted for grazing mosses and lichens. The upper incisors are set at an angle and are used for scraping the patchy vegetation from the surfaces of rocks and boulders. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button to be notified of future uploads. And also, please don't forget to leave a comment and share this video with anyone who you feel would find it interesting. I'd also like to thank my generous channel members and patrons who could be seen here. This has been the Bewarecast, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.